So as of 2018, public support for abortion reached a record high, with 58% of individuals believing that abortion should be legal in all or most cases. And despite this statistic, abortion still remains a pretty divisive issue among our country, and especially in a society where opinions on abortion are constantly changing and legislation on the issue is constantly resurfacing, it is really essential to get to the heart of the matter and discuss the true moral dilemmas associated with abortion. Oftentimes people discuss their emotions or feelings in regards to this issue. However, from a philosophical standpoint, it is really important to just discuss the morality of abortion and the moment at which an embryo becomes a person and develops its right to life. So hopefully by the end of this speech, the audience is able to have a clear understanding on the two stances of abortion, the pro-life and the pro-choice movements, and the key arguments for each. And through using the works of Prolife and Warren as foundations for these arguments, it is essential to be able to get an understanding of the validity of these two arguments, the pro-life and pro-choice movements, and develop an understanding of if and when a fetus acquires its right to life. So shifting gears, I would now like to discuss the pro-life arguments and some of the key implications on the conservative side of abortion. And the conservative central claim is that it is morally impermissible to kill a fetus in most cases, and exceptions depend on the individual or the conservative in question for this claim. Some conservatives, for example, believe that it is morally permissible to abort a fetus in instances of rape or incest. Others consider the woman's health, and there are some conservatives that believe it is morally impermissible to kill a fetus in all cases. And despite these changes in opinion, the overall general logical pathway that conservatives follow is that it is wrong to kill an innocent human being. Because a fetus is an innocent human being, it is wrong to kill a fetus. And conservatives believe that a fetus is innocent because it has committed no crime since coming to existence, and they believe that it is a human being because it has a human genetic code and is the offspring of its parents. So because of these criteria, conservatives believe that fetuses are thus people and have a serious right to life. And it is through this definition of personhood that some serious dilemmas and objections arise on somewhat both sides of the argument. For example, pro-choice individuals hope to update this definition to one that a person is someone who has a serious capacity for mental functioning, or a higher capacity for mental functioning. And even with this definition, more objections arise. Conservatives, for example, point out that through this definition, those in comas or in a vegetative state would not meet this criteria and thus would not have a serious right to life. So the definition of a person needs to be updated even further to include one that has a potential capacity for higher mental functioning. And with this definition, more objections arise in that gametes or sex cells would be included in the definition as they have the capacity for and potential for higher mental functioning, and they will eventually become human beings. And that would mean that sperm cells or eggs would thus have a serious right to life and would deserve to have rights or not be aborted. So based on these objections, conservatives ultimately reached the conclusion that a person is one that has the intrinsic potential capacity for high mental functioning. And this is the definition that Prolife developed. And based on this definition, it includes infants and toddlers, as well as those in comas or vegetative states, and it overall includes a large majority of the people that we would want to include in a person. And because of the intrinsic and potential capacity, it also excludes the somatic cells and gametes that pro-choice individuals often like to bring up based on prior definitions of personhood. So through this intrinsic potential capacity for higher mental functioning definition of a person, it includes embryos and fetuses, and thus would allow them to have a serious right to life and thus be a person. So while the conservatives definitely make some valid points in their arguments on abortion, I would now like to turn my attention towards the pro-choice arguments, in particular the works of Mary Ann Warren. The general logical pathway that pro-choice individuals follow is often that although it is wrong to kill a person, a fetus is not a person, and thus it is morally permissible to kill a fetus. And Mary Ann Warren often cites and utilizes a side note here that conservatives often use a fallacy of equivocation when discussing what a human is. Marianne Warren cites that humans really have two definitions, one that is genetic and one that is moral. And while conservatives equate the two, Marianne Warren hopes to utilize that moral aspect when discussing her argument. And to continue in the central claim of pro-choice individuals, liberals often believe that a fetus does not have a serious right to life, and it is morally permissible to terminate a pregnancy at any stage and for any reason. And Marianne Warren here often utilizes the thought experiment of a space explorer captured by aliens, in that if these aliens are able to take a chunk of the space explorer's flesh and create humans with a human genetic code and human potentiality, would it be morally permissible to deny these aliens that chunk of flesh and deny possibly a potential person's right to life? And the majority of people would say yes, it is morally permissible to deny this chunk of flesh and to possibly even deny a potential person's right to life. And this just furthers the argument that not all potential persons necessarily have a right to life. And although Marianne Warren does have an interesting perspective on abortion and a fetus's right to life, she does differ slightly from her pro-choice peers in that she believes a potential person does have a slight right to life. However, the mother's right to life and her right to abortion always override the right of the fetus. Similar to her conservative counterparts, Marianne Warren does offer her own definition of personhood, and it is through this definition of personhood that Marianne Warren offers some alternative suggestions and criteria to what makes a human being and a person a person. And Marianne Warren believes that a person is one who has consciousness and can feel pain, the ability to reason, self-motivated activity, the capacity for communication, and self-awareness. And this definition of personhood is interesting because through this definition, not all persons are necessarily human, and this would include beings such as extraterrestrials or maybe advanced computers or other forms of technology in the definition of persons, and these beings or individuals would thus have a right to life. And what is interesting about this definition even further is that this definition excludes infants, and although this definition does exclude infants, Marianne Warren hopes to make it clear that she does not see a justification for killing newborns or infants. And Marianne Warren believes that a mother's absolute right to her fetuses or her newborns in the case of birth do not have the ability to determine if that infant lives or dies, and birth marks the moment that a mother loses her absolute right to determine the fate of her child. And Marianne Warren, through this definition, also notices and cites that although infanticide is often deemed morally impermissible and it is bad based on the majority of societies, Marianne Warren wants it to be clear that infanticide is not equivalent to murder, and if the society needs to commit infanticide in terms of survival or in terms of the health of the child, it should be morally permissible, and it is not necessarily equivalent to murder. Abortion and the reproductive rights of women are really issues that are going to remain hot topics and will likely be debated for the decades, if not centuries, to come. I believe that this visual aid and this cartoon that I'm presenting right now really summarizes the arguments of the pro-life and pro-choice movements fairly well in a humorous and non-polarizing manner. The religious figure here would represent the pro-life movement, and they believe that zygotes and fetuses have a serious right to life, and that it is morally impermissible to abort a fetus for any reason, in the most extreme of cases. The judge here, for example, would represent the pro-choice movement, and the pro-choice individuals believe that a child really gains their right to life at birth, and that it is morally permissible to abort a fetus during the pregnancy at any stage and for any reason. And this visual aid really just helps put that into perspective and summarize it in a succinct and clear manner. And regardless of the stance someone really takes on abortion or reproductive rights of women, it is essential to continue to question what we believe as the accepted norms of abortion, and to continue to debate what makes a person and the moment at which a being becomes a person.